I'm Wendy Olsen, and I'm standing for councillor for Salford for the Green Party. So I'm happy to answer any questions on Green Party policy. I'm also a Quaker, and I support peace in Europe, so you could talk about that if you wanted. But in my training, I'm an economist, so I'm interested to comment a little bit about some economic issues, and then I'm really looking forward to the questions and answers and the interaction across the panel. I think it's really healthy to have this kind of discussion. So I just wanted to say that to start. And to really look at this whole process of a referendum politically, my first point is that I think Cameron is like a child who's thrown all the cards up into the air like an uproar. Okay, and as the Conservative Party leader, he shouldn't do that. It's caused a lot of aggro and a lot of mistrust and a lot of confusion. It's a kind of, have an uproar and then pick a fight, and in the middle of that fight do something really evil, stab somebody in the back. What is the evil thing that Cameron and his party are doing right now? Right now, they have been cutting benefits to immigrants, and he's gone round Europe asking for permission to give immigrants from the EU into Britain less benefits than the locals. And this is unfair, and it's against EU law. It's against all the traditions of the European Union. So he didn't get a very good hearing when he went there. Meanwhile, he's doing an even bigger evil, which is he's cutting the benefit system as a whole. And he's calling that under the austerity label. He's saying that we have to cut the spending of the government. But it's not true. And I'm so proud to be in the Green Party, which is more clear than the other parties, that it isn't necessary to keep cutting and to give money away to some groups, but actually be not spending on your own people when they need it. So because of that, we're seeing these food bank queues. In Salford, we don't dare to advertise our food banks, because if we did, the queues would be totally overwhelming. And as it is, the queue runs out the door and down the road. Thousands and thousands of people living in Britain needing that food. Why? Well, that's a long complex that we should go into. But instead, we have Cameron doing this mischief of calling a referendum. I think he pandered to the UKIP. I think UKIP are very confused. They have two different parts. One opposes the EU immigration, and the other opposes the non-EU immigration, and they don't know which is which. And in the recent May elections, their arguments were just chaos. They really were pathetic. And I'm sure I won't be seeing anyone from UKIP today. But if there is anyone, I welcome your questions. We really have to talk through these issues one by one. Most of the people I know that are in UKIP actually already work with Polish people, or date Polish people, or really like their neighbors who are from Bulgaria or other parts of Europe. So they say at a personal level they don't have a problem with immigration. But why does Europe have that policy of welcoming people from all over to move house if they want to move? Well, there's a number of practical reasons. Like, we have a lot of students in Salford, and the number of international students has doubled in the last few years. The universities here are more free to invite who they wish to study rather than British people, and we can question that policy, but it has in fact led to a lot more students coming in. And a lot of those are from non-European countries. We teach Nigerians how to manage the oil industry, which I think is good, because Salford University can teach management very well. And these then bring their families in. So immigrants bring family members. I do not object to that. I think if they marry here, that's fine. There are many, many cases like that. If they want to bring a spouse from elsewhere or bring their children, that's good for their families, and that's good for them as workers. So I don't have a problem with this immigration policy, and I'm proud to answer questions about the Greens' views on immigration. But why the European Union has had this policy for so long relates to peace. Let's not forget how the European Union developed. First, the common market. Did you know that they didn't have the treaty on the common market just to produce the EEC, a trading area? They also had the Euratom. The Euratom treaty was to control atomic weapons and atomic fuel in such a way that no particular part of Europe could get a nuclear bomb and use it on any other part of Europe. And this is a great idea. And they managed the atomic industries very well for it's 4 or 5 decades now. And then they spread that into other industries, saying, steel, we need to defend our steel industry. I admire the way that European countries have defended steel. Now we see in Britain a government not willing, it seems, to defend the steel industry, which I find astonishing. And in fact, I'm not even sure it's consistent with European policy, which is to make sure that we share and defend our industries across this this bigger zone. So I actually think small countries are at risk in the world economy. The world has become more integrated, so we need to be part of the 500 million people that are in Europe, rather than being an isolated island on the side. There are those in Europe who would be very glad if we left Europe. And I think that's a frightening thing, actually. But let me move on. Let's think about Greece for a minute. Many people think that there was a problem in Greece which the Greeks should solve, but the European view on it was that Europe should take a view and hold them to account and help them. So the European Central Bank was trying to help Greece in forcing it to accept an austerity program. Now, I don't agree with austerity economics. It's not just a personal disagreement. It is fundamentally wrong. Okay, but it's not time to go into those reasons why you shouldn't run your banking system like that. The problem in Greece was that the banks basically deserted Greece. They said, right, you've borrowed all this money, public debt, private debt, an awful lot of debt in Greece, and we're not going to back it, and we're going to make you repay that. So you're going to go into default if the banks suddenly refuse to continue to back you. But the IMF did not favor Greece leaving Europe. Then the IMF do not favor Britain leaving Europe. They know that it's better to stick together. And the way Europe sticks together at the moment is through the euro. The reason why Greece was made to follow a deficit plan, I don't like it, I didn't agree with it, but Syriza had to succumb to deficit control and to an austerity plan. And the reason was the euro. The euro implies that those countries in the euro have to have a common monetary system and a single interest rate. And they have only one exchange rate. So it's quite inflexible. I admire the way Britain has its own currency. I actually think the Irish might do well to reintroduce the Irish punt. Okay, the Scottish, if Britain leaves Europe, the Scots for sure will leave Britain, and they will reintroduce their own currency or try and get to meet the criteria to rejoin Europe, and we'll have the euro on the northern border of England. And I see that as a disaster in so many different ways. I'm happy to talk more about Scotland in the questions. But let me come back to immigration. So I've surprised you, haven't I? I'm a Green. I haven't spoken about all the wonderful environmental policies, the labor protections, those things I take for granted as some of the advantages to people from being in Europe. But on immigration, the Green view on this, and which I agree with, is that immigrants contribute to the economy. So I looked at Scotland's economy, just for an example, and about 5% more people have moved into Scotland over a 10-year period from abroad. Did you know that about 8% of Scots who are living in Scotland were born in England? Huge amount of migration across the border into Scotland, and it's good for Scotland. That's where the rise in their GDP has come from. These people work, they're not there to go on benefits, that's just a myth. And it's the same in England. People come here in order to work. So there's the three categories of people. There's students, there's workers, and there's the families of the students and the workers. I don't have a problem with it. But the Green view, people entering and possibly an increase in population in Britain, is that we should have a more fair economy with convergence. What is convergence? Not the one that the European Union wants for Greece. It's the convergence where rural and urban incomes are equalized, and we repurpose our rural areas in order to have more diverse activities there. Yes, taking control of some of the land so that it can't be wasted, and trying to encourage, through a system of taxes and subsidies, the renewables industries. Now, renewables can be produced in rural areas. They can be produced in windy areas, in sunny areas. You can produce food if you're willing to stop having quite so much of sheep growing for meat. And investing time in the production of food is not a waste of time. Investing time in renewable energy is like solar, and also insulating houses is the kind of things that leads to 1 million climate jobs. So I see the possibility for Britain of a jobs program. But the last point is on immigration itself. If we try to leave Europe in order to limit immigration, I think the immigration will happen anyway, and we'll end up with more and more unregistered people who are not paying tax, who are turning up at accident and emergency rather than registering with the local GP. I'm worried about the schooling of unregistered immigrants. I think we should maintain the system as it is and keep good information and tax people who earn money.
Okay, thanks very much. Right, thank you.